uploaded the 10th, so we're now on to Whiskey 11. Now, I'm hoping you're not going to get much feedback or anything. My wife is out at the moment and I've put the two girls to bed, so I've got one of these in case the little one decides to kick off. I'm hoping she doesn't, but if she does, I'm going to have to stop recording and come back in a bit. So I'm just hoping it's not one of those that does that like you get with a mobile phone. So fingers crossed. Right, so I was planning to follow on the Lagavulin by doing Ardbeg and Laphroaig as the next two whiskies, but the Laphroaig miniature that I have got, I took a closer look at the label and realised that there's actually potentially some value in it. And what I'm going to do is, because rather worryingly I can't find it at the moment, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a separate little video and talk about aging of bottles and how they can get value or not necessarily be valuable. I would have done these two whiskies and then done that video, but like I say, I can't find it and I'm getting a little bit worried about the fact that I can't find it. Anyway, so we've done bourbon, we've done Scotch, we've done blends, we've done malt whiskey, we've done vatted malt, and we've done a tour of Scotland. So why not do an Irish? And then once we've done the Irish, the next one we'll do will be in English, which I'm very much looking forward to because I've not had an English. There's only one at the moment, and I've not tried it yet. So the Irish that we have now, there are, at the moment, only 4 distilleries in Ireland that are operational. Now, considering the size of Ireland, and it's a pretty big bloody country, and Scotland is bigger, but not, I wouldn't have said huge amount, although there's probably some geography experts that are going, oh Ben, you're an absolute idiot, but you wouldn't say that Ireland is that much more or that much bigger than Scotland, and yet there's bucket loads of distilleries in Scotland, and at the moment only 4 operational. Now there have been 8 that have been opened or reopened since 2012, but they're still too early to be releasing any whiskies. So at the moment there are just 4 that are operational. You've got Bushmills, which is the only one that's in Northern Ireland. You've got Cooley Distillery, which is where the whiskey that I'm about to taste comes from. Now that's just on the east coast, but only very slightly outside the boundary of Northern Ireland. I'm actually going to put a map up now. Now I've noticed on the last couple of videos that when I've put a map up, it seems to have flickered to black the first time I've done it. The people that make the editing software that I'm doing are apparently on the case and they're having a look at it. It all sounds very technical, doesn't it? But it's some weird glitchy thing. So once I've put this map up, which will be around here, it might have flickered again because I can't figure out what's going on with it. So yeah, so you'll see where Cooley is hopefully, because I'll put the map up, and that's just outside the boundary in Republic. Is it Republic? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah, it's Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland. Yeah, I don't know. Then you've got Kilbeggan Distillery, which is relatively new. It was only established in 2007, and that's pretty much slap bang in the middle of the island in the Republic. And then you've got Middleton Distillery, which is right on the south coast. So those are the 4 that are operational. And Cooley Distillery used to be a potato alcohol plant, and it was basically converted into a whiskey distillery in 1987. And one of the brands that they produce is this one called, where's the camera? That side? Yeah, it's there, isn't it? Ooh, 3D. Look, you get a 3D version. Ooh. Put your glasses on now, and ooh. Sorry. So this is called Tyrconnell, and it's a plastic bottle, so it's not a great seal, which is why, even though it's unopened, actually quite a lot has probably evaporated out of the bottle. It shouldn't affect the flavour. It is 40%, and the alcohol percentage is that high that it should stay pretty dormant. I'm hoping, but it's the only one that I've managed to get hold of. So Tyrconnell is named after a racehorse. Now on the label it says established in 1792, so it's kind of giving you this impression that it's a whiskey that's been around for absolutely donkey's years and all this lot. It's basically another marketing tool, because Cooley was only starting operation in 1987, but it was a whiskey that was in existence. Irish whiskey used to be bigger than Scotch. Scotch had a really bad reputation, sort of in the early 1900s and maybe even before that. and Irish was actually quite highly regarded, and it's the reason that Irish whiskey is spelt with an E, not Irish whiskey is spelt with an E, and Scotch doesn't have the E in whiskey. Again, I'm going to do this on a separate video talking about why some whiskies are spelt with an E and some aren't, but Irish whiskey spelt with an E in order to differentiate itself from Scotch. So it was one of, there were many distilleries in this, the Watt family owned this back in the what am I talking about? Late 17th century, 18th century, 1796. 17th century, 18th century. I always get confused on that. Whatever. I've not even started drinking yet, and I'm talking absolute bollocks. Anyway, they founded the distillery in 1796, and the Tyrconnell, they actually owned a racehorse that in 1876 won the Irish National Produce race. Now, it's not kind of Grand National level, but it was 100-to-1 shot, and it won. So they named their one of their whiskies the Tyrconnell, and it's actually why there's a picture of a racehorse on it. Now, this is a single malt whiskey, but Irish whiskies can have a slightly different method as well. So they'll have a single malt, as with Scotch. They'll have a blended whiskey, which is a combination of grain whiskey and malt whiskey, but they also have something called pot still whiskey. Now, it's kind of given a different phrases in terms of pure pot still, single pot still, Irish pot still. Sometimes a single malt can say pot still because they're actually using, that's the name of the still that they use, but the pot still technique is a combination where you use malted barley and unmalted barley as well. And what the unmalted barley does is it gives it kind of an edge to the whiskey. So you've got the smoothness of the malted barley, but you've also got this slight kind of edginess to it, which makes it really interesting. Now, this particular one, now Irish is also well known for being really, really smooth. Generally, as a general rule of thumb, Irish whiskies are going to be a little bit lighter, a little bit smoother, and more easy drinking. More kind of, bad word, but session whiskies, as it were. Now, there's a really nice complexity on the nose here. It's a very, very light colour, which I'm hoping you can see. Almost kind of like white wine colour. But there's a really nice softness to it. There's a really gentle fruitiness to it. But there's a slight dryness to it, kind of slight saltiness, a little bit dry on the nose. It kind of dries out your nose and it doesn't burn at the back. Now there is that dryness carries on in the mouth as well, and it's not as fruity in your mouth as it is on the nose as it smells like it might well be. Having said that, it's really, really easy drinking. It's quite light. There's very little burn. It's a standard 40%. So age-wise, it doesn't have an age statement. So there will be a combination of ages in here. There's probably something quite young, which is why it's got that little bit of bite to it and that slight dryness. But it's probably got some old in there as well, because there is this really nice kind of undercurrent of fruitiness to them. It's not like a rich sherried fruit cake. It's more kind of like apples and pears, but kind of poached apples, not baked tartan apples, but kind of poached apples that have just been cooked and softened. I'm starting to sound more and more poncy as I go along with these tastings, and it's one of the dangers is the more you taste, the more you're starting to associate it with different flavours, the more your taste buds and your senses are starting to pick up on the differences that are in there. So the first couple is, yeah, it tastes like whiskey and it's a bit smooth or it's a bit rough. But the more you taste over a sort of short period of time, the more you start picking up going, oh right, there's that bit and that bit in there, and oh, that tastes like something else I've tried, and it becomes more and more. You start to sound more and more like some kind of prick, but you start to pick up more and more that's in all of the whiskies or wine or food or anything that you're drinking. So I really do encourage people to try as much as you can. I'm not saying drink as much as you can, totally different thing. I'm saying try as much as you can. Try new whiskies. That's why I love whiskies, because there's so many different flavours. Anyway, I'm digressing. This is probably for another video completely about why tasting is good. But yeah, there's this fruitiness to it. There's a slight dryness to it. It's almost like a raisininess to it as well. But like I say, it's not a fruit cake, it's like raisins on their own. Really, really easy drinking. Really light. I wouldn't say fresh, but it is light. Very, very nice indeed. Yeah, very good whiskey. Nothing completely, absolutely, wow, amazing. God, I've never known so many flavours in my mouth all at one time. But very easy to drink, very, very pleasant. You're looking at about 25 to 30 quid for this, because it's a single malt, so it's got slightly more of a premium than a standard Irish blended would. But all in all, if you know somebody that likes Irish whiskey and you're looking to get them something different, but you're not really wanting to break the bank or push the boat out in terms of flavour or take any risks, this really will do the job. Right, that's that done. I'm going to wash my jigger, I'm going to wash my glass, and I'm going to have another one tonight, because then I can have a rest tomorrow.